The trouble with bubbles. Nathan Hull left his surface car and crossed the pavement on foot, sniffing the chill morning air. Robot work trucks were starting to rumble past. A gutter slot sucked night debris greedily. A vanishing headline caught his eye momentarily. Pacific Tube completed. Asian land mass linked. He passed on away from the corner, hands in his pockets looking for Farley's house. Past the usual Worldcraft store with its conspicuous motto, "Own your own world." Down a short grass-lined walk and onto a sloping tilt-front porch, up 3 imitation marble stairs. Then Hull flicked his hand before the code beam and the door melted away. The house was still. Hull found the ascent tube to the 2nd floor and peered up. No sound. Warm air blew around him, tinged with faint smells of food and people and familiar objects. Had they gone? No. It was only the 3rd day. They'd be around someplace, maybe up on the roof terrace. He ascended to the 2nd floor and found it also vacant, but distant sounds drifted to his ears. A tinkle of laughter, a man's voice. A woman's, perhaps Julia's. He hoped she were still conscious. He tried a door at random, steeling himself. Sometimes during the 3rd and 4th days the contest parties got a little rough. The door melted, but the room was empty. Couches, empty glasses, ashtrays, exhausted stimulant tubes, articles of clothing strewn everywhere. Abruptly, Julia Marlowe and Max Farley appeared arm in arm, followed by several others pushing forward in a group, excited and red-cheeked, eyes bright, almost feverish. They entered the room and halted. "Nat," Julia broke away from Farley and came breathlessly up to him. "Is it that late already?" "3rd day," Hull said. "Hello, Max." "Hello, Hull. Sit down and make yourself comfortable." "Can I get you something?" "Nothing. Can't stay." Julia Farley waved a Robin over, sweeping 2 drinks from its chest tray. "Here, Hull, you can stay long enough for 1 drink." Bart Longstreet and a slender blonde appeared through a door. "Hull, you here so soon?" "3rd day. I'm picking Julia up if she still wants to leave." "Don't take her away," the slim blonde protested. She wore a side-glance robe, invisible out of the corner of the eye but an opaque fountain when looked at directly. "They're judging right now, in the lounge. Stick around, the fun's just beginning." She winked at him with heavy blue-lidded eyes, glazed and sleep-drugged. Hull turned to Julia. "If you want to stay," Julia put her hand nervously on his arm, standing close to him. Not losing her fixed smile, she grated in his ear. "Nat, for God's sake, get me out of here. I can't stand it, please." Hull caught her intense appeal, her eyes bright with desperation. He could feel the mute urgency quivering through her body, tense and strained. "Okay, Julia, we'll take off. Maybe get some breakfast. When did you last eat?" 2 days, I think. I don't know." Her voice trembled. "They're judging right now. God, Nat, you should have seen. Can't go until the judging's over," Farley rumbled. "I think they're almost through. You didn't enter, Hull. No entry for you." "No entry? Surely you're an owner." "Nope. Sorry." Hull's voice was faintly ironic. "No world of my own, Max. Can't see it." "You're missing something." Max beamed dopily, rocking back on his heels. "Quite a time, best contest party for weeks, and the real fun begins after the judging. All this is just preliminary." "I know." Hull moved Julia rapidly toward the descent tube. "We'll see you. So long, Bart. Give me a call when you're out of here." "Hold it," Bart murmured suddenly, cocking his head. "The judging's over. The winner is going to be announced." He pushed toward the lounge, the others excitedly behind. "You coming, Hull?" "Julia." Hull glanced at the girl. "All right." They followed reluctantly. For a minute, maybe. A wall of sound struck them. The lounge was a seething chaos of milling men and women. "I won!" Laura Becker shouted in ecstasy. People pushed and shoved around her toward the contest table, grabbing up their entries. Their voices grew in volume, an ominous rumble of discordant sound. Robins calmly moved furniture and fixtures back out of the way, clearing the floor rapidly. An unleashed frenzy of mounting hysteria was beginning to fill the big room. "I knew it." Julia's fingers tightened around Hull's arm. "Come on, let's get out before they start." "Start? Listen to them." Julia's eyes flickered with fear. "Come on, Nat, I've had enough. I can't stand any more of this." "I told you before you came." "You did, didn't you?" Julia smiled briefly, grabbing her coat from a Robin. She fastened the coat rapidly around her breasts and shoulders. "I admit it. You told me. Now let's go, for God's sake." She turned, making her way through the surging mass of people toward the descent tube. "Let's get out of here. We'll have breakfast. You were right. These things aren't for us. Laura Becker, plump and middle-aged, was making her way up onto the stand beside the judges, her entry clasped in her arms. Hull paused a moment, watching the immense woman struggle up, her chemically corrected features gray and sagging in the unwinking overhead lights. The third day, a lot of old-timers were beginning to show the effects, even through their artificial masks. Laura reached the stand. "Look," she shouted, holding up her entry. The Worldcraft bubble glittered, catching the light. In spite of himself, Hull had to admire the thing. If the actual world inside was as good as the exterior, Laura turned on the bubble. It glowed, winking into brilliance. The room full of people became silent, gazing up at the winning entry, the world that had taken the prize over all other comers. Laura Becker's entry was masterful. Even Hull had to admit it. She increased the magnification, bringing the microscopic central planet into focus. A murmur of admiration swept the room. Again, Laura increased the magnification. The central planet grew, showing a pale green ocean lapping faintly at a low shoreline. A city came into view, towers and broad streets, fine ribbons of gold and steel. Above, twin suns beamed down, warming the city. Myriads of inhabitants swarmed about their activities. "Wonderful," Bart Longstreet said softly, coming over beside Hull. "But the old hag has been at it 60 years. No wonder she won. She's entered every contest I can remember." "It's nice," Julia admitted in a clipped voice. "You don't care for it?" Longstreet asked. "I don't care for any of this." "She wants to go," Hull explained, moving toward the descent tube. "We'll see you later, Bart." Bart Longstreet nodded. "I know what you mean. In many ways I agree. You mind if I watch?" Laura Becker shouted, her face flushed. She increased the magnification to maximum focus, showing details of the minute city. "See them, see." The inhabitants of the city came into sharp view. They hurried about their business, endless thousands of them, in cars and on foot. Across spidery spans between buildings, breathtakingly beautiful. Laura held the Worldcraft bubble up high, breathing rapidly. She gazed around the room, her eyes bright and inflamed, glittering unhealthily. The murmurings rose, sweeping up in excitement. Numerous Worldcraft bubbles came up, chest-high, gripped in eager, impassioned hands. Laura's mouth opened. Saliva dribbled down the creases of her sagging face. Her lips twitched. She raised her bubble up over her head, her doughy chest swelling convulsively. Suddenly her face jerked, features twisting wildly. Her thick body swayed grotesquely, and from her hands the Worldcraft bubble flew, crashing to the stand in front of her. The bubble smashed, bursting into 1,000 pieces. Metal and glass, plastic parts, gears, struts, tubes, the vital machinery of the bubble, splattered in all directions. Pandemonium broke loose. All around the room other owners were smashing their worlds, breaking them and crushing them, stamping on them, grinding the delicate control mechanisms underfoot. Men and women in a frenzy of abandon, released by Laura Becker's signal, quivering in an orgy of Dionysian lust, crushing and breaking their carefully constructed worlds, one after another. "God," Julia gasped, struggling to get away, Longstreet and Hull beside her. Faces gleamed with sweat, eyes feverish and bright. Mouths gaped foolishly, muttering meaningless sounds. Clothes were torn, ripped off. A girl went down, sliding underfoot, her shrieks lost in the general din. Another followed, dragged down into the milling mass. Men and women struggled in a blur of abandon, cries and gasps. And on all sides the hideous sounds of smashing metal and glass, the unending noise of worlds being destroyed one after another. Julia dragged Hull from the lounge, her face white. She shuddered, closing her eyes. "I knew it was coming." 3 days building up to this. Smashed, they're smashing them all the worlds. Bart Longstreet made his way out after Hull and Julia. "Lunatics." He lit a cigarette shakily. "What the hell gets into them? This has happened before. They start breaking, smashing their worlds up. It doesn't make sense." Hull reached the descent tube. "Come along with us, Bart. We'll have breakfast and I'll give you my theory for what it's worth." "Just a second." Bart Longstreet scooped up his Worldcraft bubble from the arms of a robot. "My contest entry, don't want to lose it." He hurried after Julia and Hull. "More coffee?" Hull asked, looking around. "None for me," Julia murmured. She settled back in her chair, sighing. "I'm perfectly happy. I'll take some." Bart pushed his cup toward the coffee dispenser. It filled the cup and returned it. "You've got a nice little place here, Hull. Haven't you seen it before?" I don't get up this way. I haven't been in Canada in years. Let's hear your theory, Julia murmured. Go ahead, Bart said. We're waiting. Hull was silent for a moment. He gazed moodily across the table past the dishes at the thing sitting on the window ledge. Bart's contest entry, his Worldcraft bubble. Own your own world, Hull quoted ironically. Quite a slogan. Pac-Man thought it up himself, Bart said, when he was young almost a century ago. That long, Pac-Man takes treatments. A man in his position can afford them. Of course. Hull got slowly to his feet. He crossed the room and returned with the bubble. Mind? He asked Bart. Go ahead. Hull adjusted the controls mounted on the bubble's surface. The interior scene flickered into focus. A miniature planet revolving slowly. A tiny blue-white sun. He increased the magnification, bringing the planet up in size. Not bad, Hull admitted presently. Primitive, late Jurassic, I don't have the knack. I can't seem to get them into the mammal stage. This is my 16th try. I never can get any farther than this. The scene was a dense jungle steaming with fetid rot. Great shapes stirred fitfully among the decaying ferns and marshes. Coiled, gleaming reptilian bodies, smoking shapes rising up from the thick mud. Turn it off, Julia murmured. I've seen enough of them. We viewed hundreds for the contest. I didn't have a chance. Bart retrieved his bubble, snapping it off. You have to do better than the Jurassic to win. Competition is keen. Half the people there had their bubbles into the Eocene and at least 10 into the Pliocene. Laura's entry wasn't much ahead. I counted several city-building civilizations, but hers was almost as advanced as we are. 60 years, Julia said. She's been trying a long time. She's worked hard. One of those to whom it's not a game but a real passion, a way of life. And then she smashes it, Hull said thoughtfully. Smashes the bubble to bits. A world she's been working on for years, guiding it through period after period, higher and higher, smashes it into a million pieces. Why? Julia asked. Why not? Why do they do it? They get so far building it up and then they tear it all down again. Hull leaned back in his chair. It began, he stated, when we failed to find life on any of the other planets. When our exploring parties came back empty-handed. 8 dead orbs lifeless. Good for nothing. Not even lichen, rock and sand, endless deserts, one after the other all the way out to Pluto. It was a hard realization, Bart said. Of course, that was before our time. Not much before. Pac-Man remembers it, a century ago. We waited a long time for rocket travel, flight to other planets, and then to find nothing, like Columbus finding the world really was flat, Julia said, with an edge and a void. Worse, Columbus was looking for a short route to China. They could have continued the long way. But when we explored the system and found nothing, we were in for trouble. People had counted on new worlds, new lands in the sky, colonization, contact with a variety of races, trade, minerals and cultural products to exchange, but most of all the thrill of landing on planets with amazing life forms. And instead of that, nothing but dead rock and waste, nothing that could support life, our own or any other kind. A vast disappointment set in on all levels of society. And then Pac-Man brought out the Worldcraft bubble, Bart murmured. Own your own world. There was no place to go outside of Terra, no other worlds to visit. You couldn't leave here and go to another world. So instead you stayed home and put together your own world. Hull smiled wryly. You know, he has a child's version out now, a sort of preparation kit. So the child can cover the basic problems of world building before he even has a bubble. But look, Nat, Bart said. The bubbles seemed like a good idea at first. We couldn't leave Terra, so we built our own worlds right here. Subatomic worlds in controlled containers. We start life going on a subatomic world, feed it problems to make it evolve, try to raise it higher and higher. In theory, there's nothing wrong with the idea. It's certainly a creative pastime. Not a merely passive viewing like television. In fact, world building is the ultimate art form. It takes the place of all entertainments, all the passive sports as well as music and painting, but something went wrong. Not at first, Bart objected. At first it was creative. Everybody bought a Worldcraft bubble and built his own world. Evolved life farther and farther. Molded life. Controlled it. Competed with others to see who could achieve the most advanced world. And it solved another problem, Julia added. The problem of leisure. With robots to work for us and robots to serve us and take care of our needs. Yes, that was a problem, Hull admitted. Too much leisure, nothing to do, that and the disappointment of finding our planet the only habitable planet in the system. Pac-Man's bubbles seemed to solve both problems, but something went wrong. A change came. I noticed it right away. Hull stubbed out his cigarette and lit another. The change began 10 years ago and it's been growing worse. But why? Julie demanded. Explain to me why everyone stopped building their worlds creatively and began to destroy. Ever seen a child pull wings off a fly? Certainly. But the same thing, sadism. No, not exactly. More a sort of curiosity, power. Why does a child break things? Power again. We must never forget something. These world bubbles are substitutes. They take the place of something else, of finding genuine life on our own planets. And they're just too damn small to do that. These worlds are like toy boats in a bathtub, or model rocket ships you see kids playing with. They're surrogates, not the actual thing. These people who operate them, why do they want them? Because they can't explore real planets, big planets. They have a lot of energy dammed up inside them. Energy they can't express. And bottled up energy sours. It becomes aggressive. People work with their little worlds for a time, building them up. But finally they reach a point where their latent hostility, their sense of being deprived, it can be explained more easily, Bart said calmly. Your theory is too elaborate. How do you explain it? Man's innate destructive tendencies, his natural desire to kill and spread ruin. There's no such thing, Hull said flatly. Man isn't an ant. He has no fixed direction to his drives. He has no instinctive desire to destroy, any more than he had an instinctive desire to carve ivory letter openers. He has energy, and the outlet it takes depends on the opportunities available. That's what's wrong. All of us have energy, the desire to move, act, do. But we're bottled up here, sealed off on one planet. So we buy Worldcraft bubbles and make little worlds of our own. But microscopic worlds aren't enough. They're as satisfactory as a toy sailboat is to a man who wants to go sailing. Bart considered a long time, deep in thought. You may be right, he admitted finally. It sounds reasonable, but what's your suggestion? If the other 8 planets are dead, keep exploring beyond the system. We're doing that. Try to find outlets that aren't so artificial. Bart grinned. You feel this way because you never caught the hang of it. He thumped his bubble fondly. I don't find it artificial. But most people do, Julia put in. Most people aren't satisfied, that's why we left the contest party, Bart grunted. It's turning sour all right, quite a scene, wasn't it? He reflected, frowning. But the bubbles are better than nothing. What do you suggest? Give up our bubbles? What should we do instead? Just sit around and talk. Nat loves to talk, Julia murmured. Like all intellectuals. Bart tapped Hull's sleeve. When you sit in your seat in the directorate, you're with the intellectual and professional class, gray stripe. And you, blue stripe, industrial, you know that. Hull nodded. That's right, you're with Terran Spaceways, the ever-hopeful company. So you want us to give up our bubbles and just sit around, quite a solution to the problem. You're going to have to give them up. Hull's face flushed. What you do after that is your affair. What do you mean? Hull turned toward Longstreet, eyes blazing. I've introduced a bill in the directorate. A bill that will outlaw Worldcraft. Bart's mouth fell open. You what? On what grounds? Julia asked, waking up. On moral grounds, Hull stated calmly. And I think I can get it through. The directorate hall buzzed with murmuring echoes, its vast reaches alive with moving shadows, men taking their places and preparing for the session's business. Eldon von Stern, directorate floor leader, stood with Hull off to one side behind the platform. Let's get this straight, von Stern said nervously, running his fingers through his iron-gray hair. You intend to speak for this bill of yours. You want to defend it yourself, Hull nodded. That's right, why not? The analytical machines can break the bill down and present an impartial report for the members. Spellbinding has gone out of style. If you present an emotional harangue, you can be certain of losing. The members, whoa, I'll take the chance. It's too important to leave to the machines. Hull gazed out over the immense room that was slowly quieting. Representatives from all over the world were in their places. White-clad property owners, blue-clad financial and industrial magnates, the red shirts of leaders from factory cooperatives and communal farms, the green-clad men and women representing the middle-class consumer group, his own gray-striped body at the extreme right, the doctors, lawyers, scientists, educators, intellectuals and professionals of all kinds. "I'll take the chance," Hull repeated. "I want to see the bill passed. It's time the issues were made clear." Von Stern shrugged. "Suit yourself." He eyed Hull curiously. "What do you have against Worldcraft? It's too powerful a combine to buck. Pac-Man himself is here someplace. I'm surprised you." The robot chair flashed a signal. Von Stern moved away from Hull up onto the platform. "Are you sure you want to speak for the bill?" Julia said, standing beside Hull in the shadows. "Maybe he's right. Let the machines analyze the bill." Hull was gazing out across the sea of faces, trying to locate Pac-Man. The owner of Worldcraft was sitting out there. Forrest Pac-Man in his immaculate white shirt like an ancient, withered angel. Pac-Man preferred to sit with the property group, considering Worldcraft real estate instead of industry. Property still had the edge on prestige. Von Stern touched Hull's arm. "All right, take the chair and explain your proposal." Hull stepped out onto the platform and seated himself in the big marble chair. The endless rows of faces before him were carefully devoid of expression. "You've read the terms of the proposal I'm speaking for," Hull began, his voice magnified by the speakers on each member's desk. "I propose we should declare Worldcraft Industries a public menace and the real property the possession of the state. I can state my grounds in a few sentences. The theory and construction of the Worldcraft product, the subatomic universe system, is known to you. An infinite number of subatomic worlds exist, microscopic counterparts of our own spatial coordinate. Worldcraft developed, almost a century ago, a method of controlling to 30 decimals the forces and stresses involved on these micro-coordinate planes, and a fairly simplified machine which could be manipulated by an adult person. These machines for controlling specific areas of subatomic coordinates have been manufactured and sold to the general public with the slogan, "Own your own world." The idea is that the owner of the machine becomes literally a world owner, since the machine controls forces that govern a subatomic universe that is directly analogous to our own. By purchasing one of these Worldcraft machines, or bubbles, the person finds himself in possession of a virtual universe, to do with as he sees fit. Instruction manuals supplied by the company show him how to control these minute worlds so that life forms appear and rapidly evolve, giving rise to higher and higher forms until at last, assuming the owner is sufficiently skillful, he has in his personal possession a civilization of beings on a cultural par with our own. During the last few years, we have seen the sale of these machines grow, until now almost everyone possesses one or more subatomic worlds, complete with civilizations, and these years have also seen many of us take our private universes and grind the inhabitants and planets into dust. There is no law which prevents us from building up elaborate civilizations, evolved at an incredible rate of speed, and then crushing them out of existence. That is why my proposal has been presented. These minute civilizations are not dreams, they are real, they actually exist. The microscopic inhabitants are a restless stir moved through the vast hall. There were murmurs and coughs. Some members had switched off their speakers. Hull hesitated. A chill touched him. The faces below were blank, cold, uninterested. He continued rapidly. The inhabitants are at present subject to the slightest whim their owner may feel. If we wish to reach down and crush their world, turn on tidal waves, earthquakes, tornadoes, fire, volcanic action. If we wish to destroy them utterly, there is nothing they can do. Our position in relation to these minute civilizations is godlike. We can, with a wave of the hand, obliterate countless millions. We can send the lightning down, level their cities, squash their tiny buildings like ant hills. We can toss them about like toys, playthings, victims of our every whim. Hull stopped, rigid with apprehension. Some of the members had risen and strolled out. Von Stern's face twisted with ironic amusement. Hull continued lamely. "I want to see Worldcraft bubbles outlawed. We owe it to these civilizations on humanitarian grounds, on moral grounds," he went on, finishing as best he could. When he got to his feet, there was a faint ripple of applause from the gray-striped professional group, but the white-clad property owners were utterly silent. And the blue industrialists, the red shirts and the green-clad consumer representatives were silent, impassive, even a little amused. Hull returned to the wings, cold with the stark realization of defeat. "We've lost," he muttered, dazed. "I don't understand." Julia took his arm. "Maybe an appeal on some other grounds, maybe the machines can still—" Bart Longstreet came out of the shadows. "No good, Nat, won't work." Hull nodded. "I know. You can't moralize Worldcraft away. That's not the solution." Von Stern had given the signal. The members began to cast their votes, the tabulation machines whirring to life. Hull stood staring silently out at the murmuring room, crushed and bewildered. Suddenly a shape appeared in front of him, cutting off his view. Impatiently he moved to one side, but a rasping voice stopped him. "Too bad, Mr. Hull. Better luck next time." Hull stiffened. "Pac-Man," he muttered. "What do you want?" Forrest Pac-Man came out of the shadows, moving toward him slowly, feeling his way blindly along. Bart Longstreet stared at the old man with unconcealed hostility. "I'll see you later, Nat." He turned abruptly and started off. Julia stopped him. "Bart, do you have to? Important business. I'll be back later." He moved off down the aisle toward the industrial section of the hall. Hull faced Pac-Man. He had never seen the old man so close before. He studied him as he advanced slowly, feeling his way along on the arm of his robot. Forrest Pac-Man was old, 107 years, preserved by hormones and blood transfusions, elaborate washing and rejuvenating processes that maintained life in his ancient, withered body. His eyes, deep sunk, peered up at Hull as he came near, shrunken hands clutching the arm of his robot, breath coming hoarse and dry. "Hull, you don't mind if I chat with you as the voting goes on? I won't be long." He peered blindly past Hull. "Who left? I couldn't see." "Bart Longstreet, Spaceways." "Oh yes, I know him. Your speech was quite interesting, Hull. It reminded me of the old days. These people don't remember how it was. Times have changed." He stopped, letting the robot wipe his mouth and chin. "I used to be interested in rhetoric. Some of the old masters," the old man rambled on. Hull studied him curiously. Was this frail, withered old man really the power behind Worldcraft? Didn't seem possible. "Brian," Pac-Man whispered, voice dry as ashes. "William Jennings Bryan. I never heard him, of course, but they say he was the greatest. Your speech wasn't bad, but you don't understand. I listened carefully. You have some good ideas, but what you're trying to do is absurd. You don't know enough about people. Nobody's really interested in—" He broke off, coughing feebly, his robot gripping him with metal supports. Hull pushed impatiently past. "The voting is almost finished. I want to hear. If you have anything to say to me, you can file a regular memo plate." Pac-Man's robot stepped out, barring his way. Pac-Man went on slowly, shakily. "Nobody is really interested in such appeals, Hull. You made a good speech, but you don't have the idea. Not yet, at least. But you talk well, better than I've heard for a long time. These young fellows, faces all washed, running around like office boys." Hull strained, listening to the vote. The impassive robot body cut off his view, but over Pac-Man's dry rasp he could hear the results. Von Stern had risen and was reading the totals, group by group. 200 against, 35 in favor, Von Stern stated. "The proposal has been defeated." He tossed the tabulation cards down and picked up his agenda. "We'll continue with the next business." Behind Hull, Pac-Man broke off suddenly, his skull-like head cocked on one side. His deep-sunk eyes glittered and the trace of a smile twitched across his lips. "Defeated? Not even all the Greys voted for you, Hull. Now maybe you'll listen to what I have to say." Hull turned away from the hall. The robot lowered its arm. "It's over," Hull said. "Come on." Julia moved uneasily away from Pac-Man. "Let's get out of here." "You see," Pac-Man continued relentlessly, "you have potentials that could be developed into something. When I was your age, I had the same idea you have. I thought if people could see the moral issues involved, they would respond. But people aren't like that. You have to be realistic if you want to get somewhere. People," Hull scarcely heard the dry, raspy voice whispering away, "defeat. Worldcraft, the world bubbles would continue. The contest parties, bored, restless men and women with too much time drinking and dancing, comparing worlds, building up to the climax, then the orgy of breaking and smashing, over and over, endlessly." "Nobody can buck Worldcraft," Julia said. "It's too big. We'll have to accept the bubbles as part of our lives. As Bart says, unless we have something else to offer in their place." Bart Longstreet came rapidly out of the shadows. "You still here?" he said to Pac-Man. "I lost," Hull said. "The vote, I know, I heard it, but it doesn't matter." Longstreet pushed past Pac-Man and his robot. Stay here, I'll join you in a second, I have to see Von Stern. Something in Longstreet's voice made Hull look up sharply. What is it? What's happened? Why doesn't it matter? Julia demanded. Longstreet stepped up on the platform and made his way to Von Stern. He handed him a message plate and then retired to the shadows. Von Stern glanced at the plate and stopped talking. He got to his feet slowly, the plate gripped tightly. I have an announcement to make. Von Stern's voice was shaking, almost inaudible. A dispatch from Spaceway's check station on Proxima Centauri. An excited murmur rushed through the hall. Exploring ships in the Proxima system have contacted trading scouts from an extragalactic civilization. An exchange of messages has already occurred. Spaceway's ships are moving toward the Arcturan system with the expectation of finding, shouts, a bedlam of sound. Men and women on their feet, screaming in wild joy. Von Stern stopped reading and stood, his arms folded, his gray face calm, waiting for them to quiet. Forrest Pac-Man stood unmoving, his withered hands pressed together, his eyes shut. His robot sent support braces around him, catching him in a shield of protecting metal. Well, Longstreet shouted, pushing back to them. He glanced at the frail, withered figure held up by the robot's supports, then at Hull and Julia. What do you say, Hull? Let's get out of here so we can celebrate. I'll fly you home, Hull said to Julia. He looked around for an intercontinental cruiser. Too bad you live so far away. Hong Kong is so damn out of the way. Julia caught his arm. You can drive me yourself, remember, the Pacific Tube is open, we're connected with Asia now. That's right. Hull opened the door of his surface car and Julia slid in. Hull got behind the wheel and slammed the door. I forgot, with all these other things on my mind. Maybe we can see each other more often. I wouldn't mind spending a few days vacation in Hong Kong. Maybe you'll invite me. He sent the car out into traffic, moving with the remote-controlled beam. Tell me more, Julia asked. I want to know all, Bart said. Not much more. They've known for some time that something was up. That's why he wasn't too worried about Worldcraft. He knew the bottom would fall out as soon as the announcement was made. Why didn't he tell you? Hull grinned wryly. How could he? Suppose the first reports were wrong. He wanted to wait until they were sure. He knew what the results would be. Hull gestured. Look. On both sides of the strip, a tide of men and women poured out of buildings, up from the underground factories, a seething mass milling everywhere in disordered confusion, shouting and cheering, throwing things in the air, tossing paper out of windows, carrying each other on their shoulders. They're working it off, Hull said. The way it should be. Bart says Arcturus is supposed to have 7 or 8 fertile planets, some of them inhabited, some just forests and oceans. The extragalactic traders say that most systems have at least one usable planet. They visited our system a long time ago. Our early ancestors may have traded with them. Then there's plenty of life in the galaxy, Hull laughed. If what they say is true, and the fact that they exist is proof enough. No more Worldcraft. No, Hull shook his head. No more Worldcraft. Stock was already being dumped. Worthless. Probably the state would absorb the bubbles already in existence and seal them off, leaving the inhabitants free to determine their own futures. The neurotic smashing of laboriously achieved cultures was a thing of the past. The buildings of living creatures would no longer be pushed over to amuse some god suffering from ennui and frustration. Julia laughed, leaning against Hull. Now we can take it easy. Sure, you're invited to stay. We can take out permanent cohabitation papers if you want to. Hull leaned forward suddenly, his body rigid. Where's the tube? He demanded. The strip should be hitting it any minute. Julia peered ahead, frowning. Something's wrong, slow down. Hull slowed the car. An obstruction signal was flashing ahead. Cars were stopping on all sides, shifting into emergency retard lanes. He ground the car to a halt. Rocket cruisers were sweeping overhead, exhaust tubes shattering the evening silence. A dozen uniformed men ran across a field, directing a rumbling robot derrick. What the hell? Hull muttered. A soldier stepped up to the car, swinging a communication flare. Turn around, we need the whole strip. But what happened? Julia asked. The tube, earthquake, someplace halfway out, broke the tube in 10 sections. The soldier hurried off. Construction robots rushed past in a hand cart, assembling equipment as they went. Julia and Hull stared at each other wide-eyed. Good Lord, Hull muttered. 10 places, and the tube must have been full of cars. A Red Cross ship landed, its ports grating open. Dollies shuttled across to it, loading injured men. 2 relief workers appeared. They opened the door to Hull's car, getting in the back. "Drive us to town." They sank down, exhausted. "We got to get more help, hurry it." "Sure." Hull started the car again, gained speed. "How did it happen?" Julia asked one of the grim-faced, exhausted men who dabbed automatically at the cuts on his face and neck. "Earthquake." "But why didn't they build it so big quake?" The man shook his head wearily. "Nobody expected total loss, thousands of cars, tens of thousands of people." The other worker grunted. "An act of God." Hull stiffened suddenly. His eyes flickered. "What is it?" Julia asked him. "Nothing." "Are you sure? Is something wrong?" Hull said nothing. He was deep in thought, his face a mask of startled, growing horror. If you enjoyed this or any of my other work, please be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps with the algorithm. And if you really enjoyed this, please leave me a tip via the link in the description. Thanks for listening.